It's come from the way that our parents treated their bodies. It comes from the household food rules. And a lot of us kind of end up having them become our own rules and living our life according to these rules. And as you said, kind of striving towards these goals without ever really questioning if it works for us and if they actually are aligned with what we believe, the world we want to create, our values. Hello.
Welcome to Peace Unplugged, my podcast. Now, you're a fitness coach, aren't you? Would you like to tell me a little bit more about that and about what you do?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm a fitness instructor and a confidence coach. And my specialty is that I work with women and anyone who is interested in, who is looking to stop shrinking themselves and really feel confident and feel good in their body without the use of diets, without using exercise as a form of punishment for their body, and really looking to take up more space in their life.
Okay, so that's great. So you're really sort of focusing away from actually losing weight and more about just actually being fit in the body as our bodies are. Yeah, am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, especially because the research says that an intentional focus on weight loss doesn't have the kind of long-term sustainable impacts and effects that most of us are looking for, especially when it comes to motivation and consistency of movement. So instead, by flipping it into, we focus on ability-based goals, we focus on how the body feels, we focus on joy and play, and that really works for creating a strong connection with the body and also creating that consistent movement routine and that kind of more tapped into motivation that encourages people to keep going over the long term.
So it sounds to me like it's more than just about physical fitness. It's also about emotional fitness as well.
Yes, definitely. And mental health, that's for sure, is that, we're using movement as a tool to, I think of it as almost like the gateway is it's not just about changing how our body looks or even changing what our body can do. It's about changing how we feel and changing our capacity to be able to show up in our lives and do the things that we want to do. So, especially when it comes to that idea of taking up space and confidence. So movement is such a powerful tool for feeling strong and capable in your body and really being able to focus more on what you can do rather than what you look like or what you can't do. And so it's a really great tool to get out of your head, so to speak, and get into your body, which can help you in all kinds of other areas of your life and about creating balance where, so many of us have hectic, busy, hustle-based schedules, and we can use movement as a way to slow down, to create balance, to create a different kind of energy, a different state of being that can then help us, feel stronger, feel more capable, feel more ready to tackle our big dreams and the other things that we're looking to do in our lives.
So tell me, Courtney, how did you get into this in the first place? What drew you into this way of managing health in this
Yeah,
kind of radical way, really, isn't it?
it does. It does feel radical sometimes. So in 2014, I became a fitness instructor, and it was I worked over the course of the kind of the first maybe like 3 to 5 years of my fitness career, I worked at about 8 to 10 different gyms, teaching 27 classes a week. So I really quickly gained a lot of experience working with, excuse me, I really gained a lot of experience working with a wide variety of people and really hearing about their struggles and hearing about their goals and hearing about what they were going through and also existing in all these different fitness environments. I saw really quickly how much that the typical gym environment and the typical kind of fitness formula wasn't really working for my clients. It wasn't really helping them to feel the way that they wanted to feel in their bodies. So I started to kind of ask this question of like, what else could fitness look like? And then also through my own fitness journey is, I went through a phase where I was obsessed with weight loss. I was, what I would call orthorexic, which is an obsession with being clean, being healthy, especially when it comes to food. And I got to a very, very small body. And I myself realized that that didn't solve all the problems that I was having in my life. It didn't make me feel the way that I wanted to feel. It left a lot of things wanting. You know, even though I was small, I was still obsessed with maintaining and keeping, you know, a very specific body size. And I still really equated my self worth to my weight and how my body looked. So again, it kind of triggered this response of like, it didn't work. The formula that I was presented of, you know, you just have to look a certain way, you just have to be in a certain size body to feel the way that you wanted to feel, didn't work. So I started asking these questions of, okay, what's going on here? What else could there be? And that's when I discovered a couple of different things. I discovered the body positive movement, which is really about dismantling the hierarchy of bodies. It's about body acceptance. It's about learning how to respect different size bodies for what they are, and really accepting the role that genetics has to play when it comes to the way that our bodies look. I discovered the mindful eating movement, which is an anti diet approach that really focuses on mindfulness when it comes to food, honoring your hunger, eating when you're hungry, stopping when you're full, and appreciating the nutritional value of all different kinds of food. And it was through those two approaches, as well as an approach to joyful movement, which is kind of the rejection of a lot of the rules of traditional exercise, that I really created this self-love formula that has worked not only for myself. I feel more confident in my body than ever. I've been able to stick with, you know, daily fitness now for over 10 years, and a lot of my clients have been able to do the same thing, you know, when before it was that yo-yo up and down all over the place approach, and finally feeling the way that I want to feel in my body, which is confident and strong and capable. And I don't struggle with feelings of, you know, low self-worth, feelings of body dysmorphia. I was able to step out of that struggle and step out of that shame by just changing my approach and rewriting the rules of fitness and health.
It also sounds very much to me like it's trying to get away from obsessions. We can all get into obsessions
Mm-hmm.
about things, perhaps obsessions about our body, obsessions about what we eat, obsessions about our weight, obsessions about how we look. And this seems like sounds to me like you've found the balance there to be able to manage who you are, or we can manage who we are in a nice balanced kind of way, and be let's say self-respectful, shall we say, respecting ourselves, respecting our bodies in a positive way, respecting our minds in a positive way, respecting our thoughts in a positive way, and therefore creating a degree of, dare I say the word, happiness.
Yeah, respect is really, I think, you know, a big part of the foundation of what we do. I would say respect, and the other word I'm going to use is acceptance. And with those two go hand in hand is the idea that we're tuning inward to look for answers. So we're tuning inward and checking in with ourselves, checking in with our body to say, okay, how am I feeling at any given moment? Or if I'm moving my body in a certain way, how does this movement make my body feel? How is my body responding to this? And the same thing with food. Again, if I'm eating something, how is this making my body feel? Both before and after. How does my body feel after I eat this? Did it give me the energy that I was looking for? Do I feel bloated? Do I feel sick? And really looking inward for those answers and respecting the fact that our bodies change day to day, and that our bodies are so wise, and that they're really what we can look to provide that guidance, rather than, you know, a set of external rules that, you're right, does often create an obsession, and it often doesn't work with our daily lives. You know, when we have, you know, parents dealing with kids and dealing with, you know, we all get sick at different points in our lives, or we go through stressful periods where the normal routine that we might be able to uphold doesn't work. And that often creates a cycle of shame, is that, you know, we're trying to hold ourselves to this standard, and when we fall short, we blame ourselves, and we blame, you know, a lack of willpower, or a lack of dedication, or a lack of, you know, we say that we're lazy, we're not trying hard enough, or we consider that it's our fault. And when in reality it's the system itself that's broken, that the formula that we're trying to apply to our lives doesn't match. It's like square peg round hole. Versus if we take that power back and we write our own rules, it allows us to adapt to life's challenges and respect, that this is a marathon, not a sprint, that we're all hoping to live nice, long, fulfilled lives, which requires a different approach to fitness. The things that we do in our 20s aren't going to be the same things that we do in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and that's okay. It's about finding that movement that works best for you. And as you said, really respecting that your body is so wise and so worthy and so capable just because it is, without needing to change it or without needing to make it look a certain way.
My thoughts as you were just saying all of that, it's very much when we think about in our lives, we're all talk about goal setting or
Mhm.
outcome setting as I prefer to use it. I think what's coming out of this for me is we can set goals or we can set outcomes, but we also need to be aware of what is the purpose of setting that achievement. What is the purpose of getting there? Is by getting that hitting that goal, has that got a sense of achievement for us? Because I think there's an awful lot of people in the world. You think about people that have become famous or they've got, they're earning a lot of money. I mean, you hear loads of stories these days about people saying, "Well, actually, I did all of that, but I'm no happier than what I was before I started doing all of that." So then
Yeah.
what was the point of trying to achieve that goal in the first place? So I think maybe smart, setting those smart goals is that actually for what purpose? I like to use these words rather than say why, say for what purpose do I want to achieve this? Do I want to achieve that? And I say this and I apply this to myself because very much so in terms of learning stuff is that we can all be very give guides to other people, but I generally find that a lot of time I'm talking to myself when I'm talking to others.
Well, and I think a great kind of question that goes hand in hand with that idea of what's the purpose is something that I often encourage my clients to do, is to ask kind of this idea of who told me this? Where did this desire or idea, or often, especially when it comes to movement and food, where did this rule come? Is it mine, or was it something that was given to me or told to me? For so many of us, ideas around movement and health and fitness and body size and what we should or shouldn't do have really come from a lot of external sources, especially from our childhood, right? It's come from the comments that people have made around us. It's come from the way that our parents treated their bodies. It comes from the household food rules. And a lot of us kind of end up having them become our own rules and living our life according to these rules. And as you said, kind of striving towards these goals without ever really questioning if it works for us, and if they actually are aligned with what we believe, the world we want to create, our values. And especially when it comes to weight and how our body looks, as we're often following this standard that's been set for us that, again, for many of us, doesn't actually align with our values when we think of, the world that we want to live in. And I think that that's a really important piece, is like, we need to question what we've been told and make that decision for ourselves. Because for many of us, this idea, this kind of constant pursuit of weight loss is buying into this idea that some bodies are better than others, that some bodies are more worthy of respect, that some bodies are more desirable or attractive than others, which really buys into, a lot of systems of racism and sexism and that colonial kind of approach to societal organization. So it's important to question it and to see those links and to decide for yourself, because it's, as I said, it's about taking the power back, and it really creates so much freedom to decide for ourselves, and a much stronger connection with those goals that you're setting as well.
It's creating some ideas in my head as we're talking, thinking about goal setting being with integrity, goal setting
Mhm.
with authenticity, and goal setting for who we really are rather than who we think we are. So the integrity is about not what we think other people think we might be, or what we think other people will judge us to be, but actually who we really are. And I think it's
Mhm.
a lifelong task, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and especially, it requires a lot of what I do with my clients is it's some tough questions. It's a lot of deep reflection, and it's a lot of unlearning what, as I just said, what you've been taught for, or what you've been kind of following or living by for many, many years. But it's such a worthwhile and valuable process, especially because it takes you off again that yo-yo, that cycle of shame, and where so many of my clients, tell me that they have felt stuck for years and years and years. So if you're feeling stuck, it's that idea of, in order to feel differently, we have to try something different. In order to have different results in our lives, we have to be willing to question, we have to be willing to do something different. For many of us, they say the average woman spends 17 years of her life on a diet. So if diets work, you wouldn't need to spend that long and spend that many, years struggling. It's
Yeah.
time we try something different, and the freedom that comes is just, it's great to see. And it's great to see. One of my favorite parts of what I do is when I hear not just the results from again, I've been working out for so long and my motivation is higher, and I'm able to show up more consistently. But the results that I love to hear are like, I applied for the job. I asked for a raise because I thought I deserved it. I had the confidence to go on a date for the first time. I had the confidence to wear a bikini for the first time, or wear this outfit for the first time, or I was finally able to do this thing without shame, and I wasn't carrying that weight anymore. And those are the moments that I'm like, yes, yes, this is what I want. So it really, that's why I always say, like, fitness and food is kind of the gateway that helps us to ask these questions, but it ends up being about so much more than that.
It sounds to me like a very, very holistic kind of therapy that, that links all the elements of us as a human being. It's almost like a complete. So we're not just focusing on the thought patterns or the mental health. It's the whole lot, the whole thing together. I think it's a very beautiful
Yeah,
thing
exactly.
that you've
Thank you.
created, and it comes across as something really worth putting out there for people to, to be able to investigate for themselves. And let's face it, we have to be open-minded, don't we? Because sometimes we think we've got all the answers, and
Exactly.
then we discover we're not. We haven't got all the answers.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to, as
Okay,
we've been
so
talking about,
Courtney,
to
I'm going to
just
ask you my
to
perennial
have
question.
opportunities. Yeah.
Right,
Sorry, I
I'm
think
going to
there's a
ask you.
delay. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, always happens, always happens. I'm going to ask you my perennial question, which is, where do you find your peace?
That's a great question. I think for me, I'm going to come back to two things. Two things I'm going to say is, where do I find it? The first is when, in those moments of movement where you're just so purely in the moment and you're so purely connected with your body. So for me, a lot of the times I teach dance classes, and a big that's a beautiful time where I find a lot of peace, is seeing other people move and dance and find their joy, and just getting to be silly and getting to play, is definitely a really peaceful time for me. And then also getting those moments of connection with my clients, I think is a really wonderful source of peace in my life, where I'm reminded of why I do what I do, and helps me want to get up every day and keep doing it. So those are community and movement, I'll say, is where I find my peace.
That's lovely. Thank you very much for that. I'm kind of hoping that as people watch through the podcast that I've made, because nearly every guest I have, I ask the same question. I think it's useful to listen to each other about what brings us each peace, because we can then perhaps gain some more insight for ourselves by listening to other people's perspective, and discover something new, and allow those thoughts and those feelings to evolve as we gain more wisdom about ourselves and the people around us. I feel it's one of the reasons why I ask it, and obviously I ask it because of the name of my podcast. It links in with that as well.
Well, that's a beautiful question. So thanks for asking.
Okay, is there anything you want to ask me?
Well, I guess I'd love to know the same thing. Where do you find your peace?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm a musician. I find one of my most peaceful places I go to, particularly if I've been feeling really stressed or not feeling quite aligned. I live on the coast, in the south coast of England, and there's just in the village where I live, just there's a bay, and I just go and watch the sea lap on the shore, and just walk along the promenade and breathe in the air. And when the weather's getting nice now, as we're in May and moving in towards the summer, it's just getting that freshness, listening to, very much a mindful walk, listening to nature, listening to the seagulls, and just looking at the sky, contemplating the clouds, wondering about who's been there before, who's walked down there before. That is one thing that brings me peace. As I say, I'm a musician, so playing music and singing is a really peaceful thing. It gives me, I guess that gives me joy. I guess is the being part of that, and the singing thing really only came about. I always thought I couldn't sing very well after I left school. I didn't think I could sing very well, but I kind of got a bit involved in church a few years ago, and that involved a lot of communal singing. And I realised that by singing, it was actually improving my musicianship as a playing a brass instrument, playing a trombone. It was the singing is actually that realised that actually when you play a brass instrument, when you play a wind instrument, you're actually singing through it anyway. So for the few years I didn't play a brass instrument, I was still training myself, and a lot of that is about listening as well. So I get a lot of joy from listening to music, playing music, and I get a lot of peace and joy in talking to people, learning about what makes other people tick. And so for the purposes of self-discovery as well, it has to be that. And I think as a human race, if we communicate in that way more often, we get to understand each other in a better way, and there's less chance there's going to be conflict. I think there probably is always going to be conflict in the world, but let's try and reduce it as much as we can. Let's get to a point where I'm always talking about emotional intelligence. Communicate with emotional intelligence. Try to see something from somebody else's perspective and without judgment. And then I think that's when we gain wisdom. That's when we kind of learn. And I found that by doing this, by doing what I do now since I retired in December, it's amazing. It's incredible how I just managed to connect with people. Sometimes the universe just sends me people, I think. I sort of try. Oh, well, let's do a podcast with this person, and somehow it works. It just. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
well, something's going to go wrong somewhere, but today it hasn't. It's
Hmm.
I've gained some really really nice. I would call them friends, even though I probably don't speak to them all that often because there's lots of them. And again, that
Yeah.
started when I used to blog about 20 years ago. Used to write a regular blog and contacting people, being in contact with people from all across the globe, and discovering that we've all got very similar fears and worries about our lives, about our families, regardless of what culture we come from, regardless of where we come from and where we live. That's an amazing thing. I think you've got. It sounds like you've got a dog. Sounds like your dog's
I
got something
do.
to say about all this as well.
He likes to chit chat sometimes. Yeah. And I wanted to go back to something you said because I thought it was so powerful. The idea that you didn't think that you were a good singer, but you have that's still a huge source of your joy. And I hope that people take away from that you don't have to be good at something in order for it to be something that brings you joy and that brings you peace. Because I think that's a really powerful message.
It is true that there's an awful lot of people I've come across in the past that run choirs for so-called tone deaf people, and it really works because I suppose again it's like you were saying earlier. What we're told when we're growing up, well, you must be tone deaf, you can't sing, and then what we do, we end up internalizing that and believing it, whereas it's not necessarily true. We still have the ability to be able to learn. Again, I say communal singing and communal music is such to do something with other people brings such a sense of joy. And to see that there's lots of TV programs we've had over in the UK here about bringing, creating choirs, and you see how people really get the joy in their lives through doing that.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry, he's clearly seeing something outside right now.
Beautiful.
So I'm
That's all right.
trying to mute so that it's not too loud in the background.
He's got something to say. What's your dog called?
His name is Archie, and he is a border collie and Jack Russell mix. So he's lots of high energy.
Oh yeah, Jack Russells have lots of energy. I know that much. Jack Russell and Border Collie. That's an interesting mix.
Yeah, he is. He's an interesting mix, and he's quite a fun dog to have most of the time. He's a big reason. Actually, I should have listed him as one of my reasons of peace because I love getting out and kind of doing what you did with when you described, walking along the shore. As I love he's a really good reason to like slow down and get outside and even seeing the world through his eyes. He loves to stop and smell flowers or smell bushes, and that encourages me to stop, and he gets so much joy. Like, I'm in Canada, so we have quite a lot of snow over the winter, and I usually don't like snow, but he loves it. So it's a good reminder, that there can be joy in so many things in so many places.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Crikey. Yeah. So you got. So is it a little bit colder up where you are than you because you're a bit more further up the equator than probably where I am in the south of England.
It might be similar right now because we're also starting to warm up. It's coming into our summer months. So it's just starting to have some sunshine and some warmer days.
Yeah. Okay. I think what it happens over here is because of the North Atlantic drift. There's a lot more of a warm. We might be at the same level, but all that warm air comes over, and we, that's why we. I mean, I can't remember years ago since I had snow where I am. Proper snow, if you like. Proper laying snow. Um, Probably over 10 years ago. But because we don't get it very often, actually, I kind of miss it because I remember, as a child, sort of making snowmen, and I love talking about when the snow does come down in the dark evenings. Is how it makes everything so silent.
Yeah, we had quite a winter this year. We had snowbanks that were taller than me, so more than 6 feet tall, and it's definitely cool to experience. Two different worlds each year. One
Yeah,
that's covered in snow, and one that's
I
green
love
and
the
lush.
I love it when there's the snow on the ground and it's not been walked on yet,
Yes,
or so it's just like a blanket, a gentle blanket in the evening, and the sound of cars going by, it just dampens all the other sounds that normally echo around,
mm,
and then the
yeah,
fascination of seeing fox tracks the across the garden, or a cat, or some other kind of wildlife. And you kind of you didn't see we didn't see that, but we can see the tracks, and it kind of makes you wonder
yeah.
what's around.
Yeah, it's certainly a beautiful time of year, that's for sure.
Okay, it's wonderful. Okay, okay. Finally, Courtney, I want to give you the opportunity to shamelessly promote what you do on this podcast, so people can know. Mention any websites or numbers or whatever it is in the way that you promote, so people can get to see and hear that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm most active on Instagram. So if you want to reach out and find me, it's at Loyobofit, which is LoYobofit, which stands for Love Your Body Fitness. So that's where I'm most active over there. And if you send me a DM with the word apply, I will send you a link to book a free 30-minute confidence call with me where we can talk about what you're experiencing in your life, the areas that you feel stuck, and identify kind of 3 things that you can do in your life right now to start to feel better. So that's what I'd love to offer to your listeners, that free 30-minute confidence call. And again, just send me a DM on Instagram with the word apply, and I'll send you the link to book.
Okay, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on today. I know it's been a little while since we finally got together, but we managed to keep contact, and it's happened in the end. So
That's not the definition of adulting. I don't know what is.
here's wishing you peace and love from the UK. and it's been nice to see you. So take care.
Yes, you too. Thanks again for having me.
Okay. Okay. Bye for now. If you enjoyed this podcast, please follow, like, and share. Thank you very much. Martin, Peace Unplugged.